Yeah, alrighty. Okay, so I don't know, would you like to start with giving
Yeah,
me
yeah.
some context?
So, yeah, absolutely. So I will say about 6 months ago, uh, I was in a very different place. I live in Washington, D.C. I've been here for about a year and a half, like pre-pandemic, and it's been a very interesting city. And in some ways, it is not connected. Like the sense of community um, is very distant. There are people who are, who live in different parts of the city who are not welcome in other parts of the city. There's just like a interesting dynamic. Like I live like maybe a mile from the orange man's house, um, for only for a few more weeks. But the heart of the matter is like I'm very interested in local community development, but also like translocal. Like I want to see what other people are doing all over the world. Um, I've always had a curiosity about Inspiral. They've been very well. They've been telling the story well about how people have come together, and over time, I guess like one of the things that happened to me this year is like I lost a job I had, and it forced me to, lose a lot of connections in that place. And it also forced me to find new connections. So I spent a lot of time diving into communities. One of those communities was a group called Building Belonging. The website is buildingbelonging.us. And it's basically, they talk about how can we bring a certain level of awareness to the places we're in that generate and foster belonging, and how do you make that a fractal experience. So like when I went through that course, I ran into Richard Bartlett, and so I started down the Microsolidarity path. uh, and so like I did the class, and then all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I'm learning this thing about belonging. We've done the micro solidarity training, and now I want to play with it. Now I want to experiment.
Mm.
And so I joined with a few other people. We made a small collective called the Reimagined Livelihood community. How can we basically exploring how can we generate livelihood or share livelihood between each other, our networks, and our aspirations. And so that has led on an interesting adventure that has led me to you. One of the things that we noticed when we started crewing is that people had different interests, and they started going off in different directions, and people are like, wait, like I don't want to do that. Like, do I have to help
Mm.
make a decision for that? We're like, no, just go, just run. And when we started looking for ways to visualize it, like the map, right? And so we came across a visual that I think you were part of, or you helped create, with Pico Island. And so like that was the first bookmark I had for you. And I'm curious, like how that's going. Like, how did you get there? Like, that's one side of questions, and
Mhm.
then I'm the other side is like you started the call. It's like you launched something. You launched an app, and like that's where we're kind of getting to with the livelihood community. We want to launch something, so I'm wondering if there's anything you can share with like what you've learned. Right now, we're working on a podcast called The Present of Work. It's like just before the future of work. That's how we 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 phrase it. And it's presentofwork.com if you want to check it out. But yeah, we're thinking about like what does it mean to create something, in community. So those are like the two reference points. And if you need me to give you more of my background, just like ask.
Sure. Uh, but yeah, thanks a lot. That already kind of helps me position things, what might be interesting. So okay, so like this kind of two main thread is the Pico community. So like how did this happen, and what's happening here and how does that work, and then the kind of launch idea and like building projects together within the community. Okay, so I think one more thing maybe to add is I don't think this lives in the documentation of Pico work, because yeah, my documentation attempts are quite messy at the moment. I'm trying to like find a way to make it coherent for myself. So there's still like lots of bits and pieces, but I've been doing quite a few like microsolidarity experiments before starting this project here in Pico. So that might be relevant because that was really like a transitional part for me. So I'll just kind of add this as a as something that might be of interest. And I think, okay, where could I start? Okay, so I guess I kind of come from, in some ways, similar background, in the sense that, you know, I used to live in cities. I didn't have much of a community feeling there. Then I traveled for a few years. So I was, you know, I'm still location independent, right? Because I work online. But as I was traveling, I've been noticing that I don't really have this strong community, and I'm quite lonely. Like I have my partner, so there's me, the two of us. So, you know, that's like our basic dyad relationship. But we didn't really have kind of a community around us. It was just the two of us working together, living together, and, you know, a few friends, of course, and our families. But that was not very, it was not giving me like this full sense of belonging that I wanted to. And, you know, I always had this feeling like, okay, I'm in this amazing place, I can connect with people and meet, but then I'm going to leave soon, or they will leave. So, you know, it's this kind of like digital nomad problem that you just meet so many people, and it's great for like single serving experiences, and maybe some of them last longer. But there is no rhythm to it. Like maybe one day you'll meet again and it's great and there's value. I love those experiences. So there's like nothing wrong with them. They have their place, I think. But I think I was looking for something different. So that's like one part of the story. And I really started with, I don't know how I came, what was kind of the signal, but like this idea of rhythms, that basically I experimented with the fact, okay, so what if I have a conversation with a friend and we say, what's going to be the next conversation? When is it going to happen? And let's schedule it straight away, like even if it's 3 months in advance. And then I realized, okay, so I have a few friends. During the conversation, I was assessing if I want to continue. And then if I would want to continue, then we would name a rhythm straight away and have another call and just put it in the calendar. And that started to work very well, because even if I had a conversation with, I don't know, I have one friend with whom I'm meeting, or two friends actually, that I'm meeting like maybe twice a year, once a year. So it's quite rare. And those are online meetings, right? So we have calls. But it works. It's just like different rhythm for different relationships, and they just serve different purposes. And then there were a few friends with whom I meet monthly, and, you know, like this kind of things. And then I found the Microsolidarity, which sent me, I guess, like similar to you, just down this rabbit hole of, wow, so many amazing resources. And it gave me the vocabulary to talk about things that I was kind of aware of, but you know, they didn't have the words for me to really express them. So yeah, for that, forever grateful to Rich. And that somehow coincided with me arriving to Pico. So I came here in February just because I love islands in general. And, you know, it was just another place in my journey. So I came here for 2 months. And then we decided straight away to stay for 3 months instead of 2. And then there was a lockdown, so we couldn't leave because there was no flights. So we were stuck here until end of June. And throughout this process, we kind of realized, actually, we like it here and we would like to stay here for longer. And now it's, well, I've been here since February, it's December, and we're still here. So, and now we're thinking of like staying here for a longer period of time, maybe a few years, and treating this place as a base. I still want to travel and spend maybe 2-3 months away, but it's a perfect anchor. And so far I've been traveling only forward. I didn't have a base to come back to. So it was always moving to the next step. And I like that, but now I feel this fulfills different purpose. So that's kind of how I came here. And
can you say a little bit about the island? Because I don't have reference for Pico Island. Like, can you just
sure,
describe it a little bit? Like,
yeah.
what's it like?
So it's a small island. It's in the middle, not really middle, but it's in the Atlantic Ocean, so between Europe and States. Part of Portugal, so part of European Union, and it's an archipelago, so there's more islands. This one is
Mm,
it's not the most important, in this whole archipelago. It's a volcanic island. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's a perfect combination of nature, because it has a mountain, it has forest, and it has ocean. So it's basically everything that I like. It's just here. And even if it's small, but I guess this is quite common for islands, but maybe not all of them, but it's very diverse in terms of nature. So traveling between the island, like, I mean, it's not big, like it takes you 1.5 hours to drive around by car, so it's not really a big space. But it has a lot of variety also in terms of climate. And that's another kind of amazing thing about it, is the climate, that you can grow food, anything from subtropical stuff, so like bananas, mangoes, this kind of stuff, all the way to this continental European things like apples and pears. So this is very uncommon in general to have the combination of those two things, which I love it. I mean, I'm kind of heavy interested in eating fruits as the base of my diet. So
nice.
this is like a big factor for me, that all those different things grow here. There's lots of water, like there's rainfall quite a lot, but it's not too much. Like, it's a good balance. It keeps everything alive,
Mm, mm,
but it's not too much to make you feel like, sad. I used to live in the UK for a long time, so I had the experience of rain, constant rain. Although in Scotland it was not so bad. It was very windy, but not so rainy. But yeah, the weather keeps changing all the time. I guess this is the perks of being in the middle of the ocean. Just like things changed even twice a day, 3 times a day. But it's generally warm. Like even now you can go outside this December and be in a t-shirt on some days, or like just wear a fleece, swim in the ocean. Like now it's a bit colder, but it's still manageable if the sea is not too rough. So it's a good place to be. And because of the size of it, it has this natural sense of community. It's kind of this like village mentality, that people know each other, they help each other. It's the community is default. So people, for example, very quickly after we moved there, even if we didn't interact that much with our neighbors, everybody knew us, like in the whole village. And then, once we started to bridge this gap and actually interact with the local people, um, yeah, like people just immediately started bringing us food, like, hey, have some carrots, have some potatoes.
oh,
uh,
nice.
and that's the default, like I have my things,
Mm,
so you can also have people share. It's not
exactly.
like the richest place in the world, um,
Mm,
but yeah, people seem it's more relaxed. Like, of course, it
mm,
has its own problems. I'm painting this beautiful, idyllic picture, but of course, it has issues, like every place, plus and minus. Um, but at least for me right now, it feels like a good place to be, at least for a while.
mm.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I drew this like a couple of days ago, but maybe it could be Pico.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you mean. The trees are there, the water is there, and then the mountain in the back, and you got it. So yeah, for that is quite a nice place. And yeah, and I guess this kind of brings me to this microsolidarity experiments. So basically, what happened is well, my experience of this year, like the COVID year, is very, very different from most people's experiences. So like it's all about community this year for me. It's insane. So because here the COVID is not really a serious thing. You know, there's like you don't really have lockdowns. I mean, there was a lockdown that you couldn't leave or come to the island, but within the island, it's very, you know, relaxed. So you can still gather, like, okay, not big public gatherings, but you know, if you have friends for dinner, it's fine. You can, there's no cases or barely any cases. So it's like different reality. And it was the first time that after a very long time that I was living with flatmates or housemates, because yeah, most of the time it was just me and my partner traveling. And sometimes we would have housemates or we would live like in some kind of community or space that had more people, but most of the times it's just two of us. So yeah, throughout COVID, I had more people in my nearest, you know, surroundings in the same house. And we started circling together. So every week we would just meet to have a sharing circle and just like share how it was, how your week went. It was very straightforward. But, you know, I kind of have this theory, but, you know, I lived in many different flats throughout the years with many people. And I've noticed that lots of friendships kind of break over dirty dishes, you know, like those very mundane, stupid thing that living together, you know, people have different expectations, different levels of cleanliness, all of that. And usually those go unspoken, and they just create these triggers that, you know, people get annoyed and frustrated. So we wanted to avoid that. And one space to avoid that was just circling. So we, you know, of course we lived together, but we all had our own things. So we found this super useful to just have the space to share how was your week and just check in with each other. And at the end of every circle, we would just talk about practical flat stuff. So, you know, like, what about shopping? Do we want to distribute, you know, tasks? Somebody wants to do laundry for everyone. Okay, so maybe I'll do something else, you know, this kind of stuff. And it was amazing. We were doing that weekly throughout the whole time that we lived together, which was like 4 months or 5. Yeah. So that was one thing. Then in this, so that was my kind of presential experience. Then in the same time, I thought I really liked what Rich was emphasizing in Microsolidarity, that, you know, it's all about verbs. It's about doing stuff. Like you can read about it, but you know, you just need to do stuff to test, because there's no other way of learning. And this really resonates with me. I really believe that you can learn by doing. This is the most effective thing. So basically, I kind of thought, okay, let's do Microsolidarity. I love this idea. And what resonated with me is to start with people over projects. So before jumping into building projects together, let's just focus on building emotional intimacy. And I guess this is partly connected to some experiences in the past. You know, like I remember I had this big project just after my university, and it was super important for me. It was like really critical, maybe turning point in my life. And the project just ended up in a disaster in terms of, like, not only the project didn't work at the end, but the core team split in a very unhealthy, you know, not a very nice way. And I think it was partially because we were really focused on the project, not the relationship. So I had that experience firsthand. So basically I made a list of people, you know, I just thought like, hey, who are the guys that I would like to spend some time with and connect? And it was very intuitive. And I made a list, and then I kept refining this list. And then I started gradually to reach out to those people and just saying, hey, look at this. Microsolidarity seems cool. Would you be interested to run a pod together? And let's start just like meeting. I'm happy to have the calls. However, let's create it together. So I was kind of calling some of the pods. And it was very intuitive. Like some of those people were people I've had some connections in the past. Some were practically strangers that we just had like barely any connection. And I started with two pods. One was just focused on supporting each other. And, you know, we came up with a format during the first 2 calls, like sharing how we would like it to look like and all of that. And then the other pod was connected to emotions and like exploring emotions together. So yeah, that was kind of the first touches on that topic. And yeah, then we started going through the circles. You know, we decided, okay, let's have a cycle of X calls and a retrospective at the end. And then yeah, for all of these pods, we now continue, and we're in the second or third iteration, and it, of course, it changed its kind of role. But interestingly, one is still very much connected to emotional proximity and like connecting, sharing, holding space for each other. One is becoming more project oriented in terms that we are all facilitators. So our new format, like we just had a retrospective a while ago and we didn't have a new session, but the new format is going to be focused on diving into individual projects and helping each other grow as facilitators. And we found this that, okay, this is something that brings us together, so we can explore this together. But basically all those pods are really focused on emotional proximity. And those are digital things, right? So this is what I was doing with people over internet. And then somewhere along these lines, along this time, I started meeting people in Pico, not just our neighbors that were, you know, like kind of people that we didn't have much in common with, you know, just like people who were locals living there for a long time, but we just didn't have like, you know, common interest in some things. So we didn't really have like deep interactions with them. You know, we just kind of had chats, and it was nice to connect with the locals. I like this idea of bridging the gap and not just being this expat that just completely removed. But with time, we started meeting some friends. And then we moved to a new house, and we thought, okay, we have like maybe a circle of 5 or 6 or 7 people that we really like connecting with, and they're doing amazing projects on their own. Like one couple is very well, everyone here is pretty much doing some farming to some degree. But yeah, those people we kind of met are like really pros, you know, they know about permaculture, they're doing this, they want to go towards full sustainability in terms of food, or like not, you know, needing money that much because they are pretty much sustainable in all the aspects, but also giving back to community, you know, teaching skills that they have, this kind of things. So we thought, okay, there's actually a big amount of people here that are like-minded, and they seem to be doing amazing things together. And there's already this community mindset, because it's normal that you say, hey, could you come here and help me one day with something, and then you will go to help someone. So this already existed, you know, so it was a very fertile soil. So we thought, okay, what if we actually apply microsolidarity here and just do it? So we called a circle. It was like our housewarming party, because we moved to a different house. And instead of having a party, we kind of said that, okay, we're gonna have a circle, and the topic is new beginnings. So we'll ask everyone to share about their new beginnings. And we had maybe 10 people coming. So it was not that big of a group, you know, and we just had a circle, and it was amazing. We had some feedback, like, you know, that people were missing this kind of spaces. They had them when they were traveling, but they just weren't happening here. So it seemed like, okay, this is really a need for this community, and it's something people like, and it's something that brings us together. So then we thought, okay, let's continue. And since then, that was maybe August, we're meeting every 2 weeks. We decided on this rhythm, and, you know, there is a format for this that's in the documentation, that's like more technical aspect. So this was mostly it, you know, for most of the year, we were just meeting to connect with each other. There was always a different topic, and just had a very simple check-in round, you know, when we share how we are, and then we go into the topic. So we all share on the topic, and then at the end we have a checkout, and then, you know, we started doing some kind of announcements because people wanted to do more projects. Like we basically, what happened, the circle provided a space for other things to happen. So again, it's like this microsolidarity idea. You create space where people can eventually propose ideas, but our goal was not at all to do anything together at the beginning. It was just to come together, connect, because yeah, like we really believe, or we see that now, that relationships should come first, and from relationships projects will sprout. And this, so basically, you know, when I drew the first map and I started documenting this community, the projects that were there were pretty much projects that people were doing. There was the circle that we were doing together, but then some people had their own things. You know, there's like this one project that brings volunteers and they do some construction, and sometimes they have like jazz nights and this kind of thing. There is another project that also, you know, has workaways and wants to do like some art classes, things like that. There's a person that teaches dance and singing and all this kind of things, and martial arts and yoga. So those things were already there. We just connected them with this circle. So we always had the space, okay, every 2 weeks we come together, because people here are very busy. That's also a very funny and interesting thing. Like you would expect, hey, we're in the island, let's just enjoy. No, because people farm, and this takes a lot of time, which I'm now learning because I also jumped on the farming wagon. So yeah, and maybe like to conclude this monologue, I feel like I also want to give you some space for questions, not just speak, but like what we've noticed is kind of recently it started to shift, and there seems to be enough energy for people to actually do projects together using the circle to catalyze them. And this is incredible. And it was not happening from the beginning. Like it took some time. I think the first one was, there's one person here who has this mission in life to help animals. And it's been always their dream to have like an animal sanctuary. But it's just never happened. So they're helping, you know, animals in their time, but it never really grew into a big project. And during one circle, this kind of prompted her to actually start doing something towards this dream. And I think a big part of it was realizing that there is a space where you can share this kind of ideas and potentially bring someone like-minded to join you. Because I guess this happens in the city and it happens on the island. But like if you have an idea and you want to do it, if it's just you, you know, it's tricky. Like I think it's always more effective when you have other people to keep you motivated and everything, right? And here in the island, it's maybe even more extreme because you feel like, oh my God, I want to have a theater group. But if your partner and your immediate neighbors don't want to have a theater group, then who in this island wants to do theater together? It's just like, I'm never going to find anyone. But that's not necessarily true, because once you start creating spaces where you can actually bring people together and mention that you have this kind of idea, there might be someone who also wants that, but thinks the same way, that nobody's interested, or at least my nearest proximity people are not interested, therefore nobody else is. So I think this is kind of what happened with this person. And she found a partner here to do this project together. And they started an association. So that took a moment, but it's actually now legalized and it exists. And I'm helping them with kind of like businessy setup and, you know, digital stack and what tools to use for what. And other people are helping with other things. So, you know, like people are helping with their little bits, but it's like a project that was really much nurtured through the circle. And another example is one circle specifically was maybe one of the most interesting ones. The topic was something around the world, you know, like, okay, there's lots of problems in the world, environmental, political, societal. How do you feel about it? What is your role? What are you doing about this? So it's, it's kind of a bit depressing topic in some time, because you're just realizing it's just infinite complexity of issues wherever you look at, and you're very much a part of it, right? Even if you're trying to do good. But what was interesting is the first time when we talked about it, and there was enough energy to say, okay, what if we do something about this? I mean, we're all doing something individually, but maybe there's something we can do together. So we started thinking about that, and I think this is a project that's going to be something big, like island encompassing maybe, but it's now still in like this percolating phase, so there's some ideas. We are doing little steps to kind of explore, but it seems clear that there is the energy and drive to actually do something. Yeah, so now we're gonna have a Christmas like winter gathering. We'll meet for a few days. That's also, a nice thing. That's kind of like another project which is more focused on fun and connection. And then the next year we're gonna start it with like a bigger retrospective where we're gonna think about our community plans for next year. So, things like this basically start happening. And the circle also became a space where people, I think, have more will to host something. Like there's a person that started hosting art therapy workshops, and now they have a space where to offer them, like, hey guys, in next Sunday I'm gonna do a workshop if anybody wants to come. So it's becoming something more than just connection, but it really started with meeting together to share. That was it. Like there was no anything. So yeah, I guess this is where we are now, like a very condensed pill of everything. So now I'll let you ask questions and share, because I feel like I'm speaking all the time.
Yeah. No, that was amazing. I hope you recorded it, because then you don't have to share it again. I would love a copy though for my group as well. Like I can tell a little bit of the story there, but I have two questions that came to me. I think one was, I'm curious about your superpower. Like, how are you helping others? Like you mentioned, tech stacks and stuff. So like, what is your superpower that you're helping the community either with or helping the community to develop? And then the second question is like, how are you related to the Inspiral? But I'll talk a little bit to give you some space. Yeah. So I guess like a little bit of my background. Like I guess like I used to consider myself a techie, like a technologist. I started off, I don't know, like years ago. I built my first website a long time ago, and then I thought that would be my career. I thought I could go make websites, and then I realized it's hard to make money doing websites. So I went into consulting because you could charge people more money. And so my whole career was built around helping organizations think about technology development and integration. What happened, a funny thing happened to me on the way, maybe like 2017, 2016. I ran into something called Holacracy. And the I thought I could just use it at the company I was at, but as soon as I started doing that, like I started noticing, like, alert, the superiors were like, oh, this guy's gone rogue. He doesn't take orders anymore. He's not following like what we say. Because like the whole system of holacracy is to get rid of the bosses. Like who needs the bosses? Throw them out. And I didn't realize you couldn't do that inside a company. At least like you had to have buy-in from the top. So I was like, oh, so like maybe that's not how you build community. Is say I'm not listening to you anymore, big man or big woman. So I spent probably maybe those 2 years like developing hackathons. Like I wrote like a miniature book for this company, started getting them business by like getting people together to like build products and services. And I thought like that could be my like ticket to just like not having a boss. And it didn't work out. and one of the things I realized is that there are like power dynamics in companies and organizations. There are just ways that people think things should be done, and oftentimes, if you don't have a way to question it or to have those people think critically, you end up in very tense and emotionally draining situations. So I was like, okay, like who is solving that problem? So I started going out, meeting people. I ran into a group in Massachusetts called Sociocracy for All, and they that was the first time I had heard of a circle. Like I had never come across that term before. Um, and they basically they gave me some training, and I was like, okay, like I can go out and create a circle, but I don't know what to do with it. And so like part of what I did over the next few years was just like practice with people. I think like what like your story, like it mirrored my own story a lot, like just people coming together to share, because like ultimately like that's the most human thing we can do, is tell each other stories.
Yeah.
And in some ways we forget about that. uh Fast forwarding, I ran into a group, yeah, building belonging, art of hosting. There's all these communities that they talk about these practices. They're very good at holding gatherings, but they're not, in some ways, like it's hard to make it long term. Hard to make it last more than like a single serve. Like I love that you use that phrase. It's like an ice cream cone. Tastes great once, but then it's gone, in some ways, like not having a home base is something that I've struggled with. So I resonated with that part of your story a lot.
Mhm.
And in some ways I'm trying to get to like where you are, like metaphorically, literally, like I want to go to the island, but I'm trapped in the city, like that's part of what I'm trying to learn. How do you kind of liberate, how do I liberate myself from the world, the corporate working world? DC is a very corporate, politically heavy city. But a lot of there's still land, there's still mountains, there's still streams and rivers here, and I'm not connected to them. So like it's something I realized, like talking to you, is like I have to investigate, why is that? Why am I not able to connect more deeply with the land where I am? The final thing I'd say is I came to the Inspiral conversation, through one of the people in our group. Her name is Carol. She started a series over the summer called Livelihood Circle, and she basically invited people to talk about their relationship to money. Like what does success mean to you? Like what does failure mean to you? And just really getting deep out of the emotional content that money brings up. Because like in some ways, like we use it to survive. But in some ways, like I learned yesterday, that money uses us to survive. Like, do we actually need money? Like that's a different debate. Money needs us. That was something we came up with yesterday.
I love it.
And
I love it.
you like that? uh, the funny part is, so that conversation started a conversation with Susan Basterfield. I don't know if you know her. Yeah, so she came to one of our circle meetings. She was like, "You guys should make this a real thing. You should make this like a actual circle. You should play with money. Like go all the way. Don't tiptoe. Don't stick your toe and just go all the way." So she like pushed us, and we all fell in the water, and we've been like swimming around like ever since. And a lot of people have done the passion projects. Like we have a young man in Canada, Montreal, who's now moved to the States to be with the person he's met on our group. Which is great. So we're a matchmaking service. He's also interested in like renewable agriculture. So like we have people with very like deep passion there. He's part of GRC, Permaculture Collab, all of these different groups. And then we have some people who are interested in writing, and like, how can we make writing a medium for ourselves? And we just got a Git book. And I was like, hey, look at this Git book, like from Pico Island. Like, that's the Git book. We should talk to those people. And in some ways, like, that's kind of the path that led me to Inspiral. Like a few weeks ago, I asked Susan, like, how can I get involved? How can I help people? Like, my superpowers are listening, helping people realize that they already know everything they need to know. Like, it's there, you're it. You don't need to wait. Like, you got it. Like, don't worry about it. I just remind people that they're great. That's my job. And then I help with technology. Like, I used to be a programmer, a product manager, so I can help in the technical domain. But like, those are the places I like to do, to be of service. So, but yeah, I'll stop rambling. I'll let you talk.
I love that, Brandon. This is, yeah, I see the parallels. It's interesting how, yeah, just many things connect, and we have things to relate to each other. And I really like some of the things. I mean, the money needs us to survive. Yeah, I think it's a story, right? We tell ourselves, if we stop using money, it just stops existing. So it definitely needs us. I love this idea of, the livelihood circle, and just talking about this relationship to money, because it seems like, I mean, I see that very much in myself. If you decide to use money, which I guess is a choice, right? You can not use it, but if you do, which most of us do, well, it creates certain tensions, right? Because you need X amount to pay for your things. Yeah, so there's a lot of, I don't know, maybe anxiety also connected with it, and fear is a very powerful motivator. And yeah, occupies your time, right? Like, if you spend your time making money, then there's less time for other things, right? And yeah, I guess the community, where you start figuring this out together, is a very good place for you to notice certain patterns and start making shifts. I think, like, this is something that my partner made me realize recently, like this power of rhythms, and the fact that you have this rhythm you can rely on just to think together. And even if you don't have space for, weekly reviews and thinking and going on a vision quest, you have this recurring meeting with someone who is on a similar journey to you in some ways, that will help you reflect on your things. And there's this funny thing that always makes me laugh, that when we give advice to someone, it's usually advice that's good for ourselves. So once you notice this, it's so powerful, because you get to connect, you share stories, you give advice and feel like you're an expert, which is a nice, like, positive boost, that you realize, okay, I have something to give, I can help someone. But you also help yourself, and you get this space for clarity, and yeah, maybe something beautiful will be born out of it. So yeah, I think, like, all these kind of practices that bring us together, just, I don't know, like, are just such a basic and fundamental part of our humanity, that any kind of initiatives that make those spaces exist seem like, I don't know, like, that's where I would like to put my energy in. Like, okay, making money is still a thing, right? And as long as you are in the system, you kind of need to make some. But I guess it always comes down to the relationship with it, like, I don't know, like, I really like this idea I learned from Paul Jarvis, about starting your business with defining the maximum. Like, I don't want to earn more than this, rather than, hey, how do I get to $1 million? No, it's like, what's the amount of money that you don't want to earn more? And once I have this, I'm done. And it's very, very a good place to be in there. I think now we're trying to, design our business for that. Like, there's an end goal, and once we reach that, we don't need to make more. And simultaneously, work in the other front, like grow our own food, so we don't need to buy shit in supermarket, but we have our own things. So there's parallels there. Yeah, I think there are some, terms I'd like to research that you mentioned that I haven't really invested that much time, like holacracy, sociocracy. I'm familiar with those terms, but just like very, very basics. It's always like so many rabbit holes to go into and find. Um, but yeah, thanks for sharing your story. Um, I guess at the end of the conversation, I'll just ask you to send me some links, like also to your Git books when this is all
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
some of the documentation. I would love to read about that. Um, yeah, so those are some of the thoughts that are coming
Mm.
up as you were sharing.
And your superpower, what's your
The
superpower?
superpower, I think maybe it's like the combination of two things. I think one thing is maybe a few, I don't know, like it's hard to identify those things, but I think one thing that it's quite easy for me to call things, like just to make things happen and give them energy. And I guess I'm realizing more and more that my role, like whatever that means, in the universe, is not really to come up with an amazing project that will just change the world, but it's more about working with people who are working on this kind of projects.
Mm.
um, and it's a very nice exercise for the ego as well, to just like, hey, it's not all, I'm not the world savior, but I'm very happy in a place of um, helping people who are working with important things, yeah, be consistent with other things in their life. Like, if you don't exercise, if you don't eat healthy, if you don't do those kind of very basic things, it's hard to be like sustain the amount of energy that you could actually make a huge impact with your work. And if you just kind of focus on the work, it can last for some time, but then eventually, there might be a burnout there. So yeah, there's this kind of relationship between life practices, what I call, like the things that help you be your best self and show up for a very long period of time into the work that you care about. And I guess, this is the problem with work you care about. I mean, very much in the same boat. I love what I do for work, but then it makes it very easy to forget about other things because, it matters, and I want to do this work and it's changing the world or people's life for the better. So, I'm busy now, so I'm not going to exercise because this is more important. But it's not really. Like, if I don't exercise, then after a week my energy will start to drop and I will not sleep so well, and then, things will just go downward spiral. So maintaining this consistency in a very long run, which I think is always, the kind of key skill, key life skill, to be consistent with whatever you decide.
Mm.
And like not consistent for like 30-day challenge, but like 30-year challenge kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, it's super, super fucking hard.
Mm.
And again, this is where relational work helps, because when you have a group of people doing this together, it makes all the difference. Like you were asking about the launch of our new product. So like this is what we're trying to do now with my partner. It's going to be a 1 year long, um, 1 year or long program where we're going to have bi-weekly sessions for people to maintain and focus on building life practices. You choose three, one per quarter. So like really to be
Mm.
consistent with it, and
I
then
love that.
just keep
Oh, that's
going.
awesome. How can
That's
I sign up?
yeah, that's a good. It is like it's
Yeah, I'm
working.
sold.
I love
I'm
it.
sold.
I love it. Would love to have you on board. It seems like it's for people like you, but you see, this is the thing. Like, I love working with this kind of people that are doing things that matter. Like, I mean, again, and I don't want to like put this negative association to making money. Like, I understand this is also important and it's fine. But yeah, I think there's, yeah, like what I mentioned before, there's a limit to it, and yeah, there is a different way of doing things. I love when you're saying like, hey, there's no need for a boss, that we can all be boss together and it's going to work much better. So I guess this is part of my superpower, like show up and catalyze things to happen. And if somebody, says, hey, I would like to do this, I am very comfortable with pitching this to the group, or be the guy like, hey, let's, like what we did in Pico, let's have a circle, or reach out to three friends and say, hey, let's have a Microsolidarity pod and see what happens. This is easy for me. I don't know if this is, sometimes it's also a curse, because I tend to start many things, but then consistency, and how many things you can really do. So it's a lesson I'm learning, to do less but better. But yeah, I guess this is one superpower. And I like working with people in general. So that's what I'm doing.
No, that's awesome. I'm realizing we're almost at our time, but I have a hard stop. I have another call too. This is like the one thing, like I love, like I'm energized by this conversation. I want to go out and like do stuff, and then I was like, oh, I have to go to a different call. Very different energy, like very
Yeah.
different people. Like they want me to be like in a box, and I feel very open, like just talking to you, and I would love to find a way to continue to like build the relationship and see where we can help each other out.
I mean, the
There
same
was,
boat. Definitely.
yeah,
I
I
really enjoyed this conversation. I think, yeah, I would love to continue at some point.
mm, I have some friends in the EU. It's a group called Friendy, Fraendi, and I'll send you the links as well. But they are there's an upcoming series of calls called like a warm data. I don't know if you've heard of warm data, but it's a type of circle method where you're doing sense making together. So it's less at the emotional level and more at it combines like the head and the heart. That's how I can describe it. But it would be cool to see, what you think of that space. So I'll try to like send you some information on that. They have an interesting project that like maybe this service product that you're building, you two are building. I think you can host it on their platform if you want to attract more people. So like I'm helping them build the platform right now. So I would love to just like keep you in mind for that. Um, because I think in some ways it's all about like finding like-minded, people right now. So I just
Very
wanted
true.
to like say that before I forgot.
Thanks a lot for offering that. I really appreciate it. And yeah, absolutely, I'd love to learn more. And yeah, like sense making is also a huge thing. It's like I'm just kind of starting to dip my toes into kind of doing it more seriously and exploring it. And yeah, it feels like another amazing, very important rabbit hole. And yeah, I think, I feel in some ways very like, not fragile is not the right word, like vulnerable, because I'm kind of just realizing how little I know, and like how confusing the world is, and like schizophrenic experiences that, we all
Yeah.
interpret the same thing so different. I mean, like Trump's Twitter is wonderful for that, like looking at people's responses and like how different they are in all the spectrum. It's incredible. Like, I mean, it's scary, it's incredible, it's fascinating, it's all those things.
Mm.
Yeah, it seems like a very important skill for the world, and doing it together is, I'm sure, the very good way to do it, rather than just be stuck in your own confirmation biases and just in your own happy filter bubble and a little
Mm.
cave that we all make for ourselves, because it's nice and
Mm.
cozy and nothing can surprise us there.
That's why we never change. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. So yeah, what should I do? I want to send you some links.
Yeah, I would love that if
Um,
you can just send me some links, and maybe I'll also just put this video somewhere and I can share. I think it might be valuable for someone.
mm,
Yeah, and I can send you some of the links that I to the things I've mentioned. Um, and yeah, I would love to continue this conversation. So we can also asynchronously talk about that and find the suitable time to continue. And yeah, if I can help you in any way to build this community, even in Washington DC, or with your friends that you're doing, I would love that. I mean, I don't know to what extent I can be helpful, but I'm at least happy to think together. You know, it also helps me. It's perfect. It's a win-win-win. Like everybody benefits.
Yeah. Wait, so question. What I remember. So Stephanie, I'm sure she would love to watch the video because she just woke up. So I just got the message. I'm glad you
Nice.
could talk to her. But yeah, maybe like another call. Like she might want to join. She's
Absolutely.
like,
Let's do it.
yeah, she is like a super connector. She organized a call with Rich. I don't know how often you talk to Rich, but you're closer to him, like time wise. He was there at Pico Island at some point.
No,
Was that true? No?
no.
Okay.
I'd
I'm
love
trying to
to.
remember.
Wink,
All
wink.
right.
Rich, if you're watching, come over.
Well, I know they're planning the retreat, right? The Inspiral retreat.
That well, the kind of global and spiral is going to be New Zealand, and the European one was recently-ish, and the next one we still don't know when it's going to be the next date for next one.
Oh,
Hopefully it can
okay.
happen in person. You know, the last one we had in Europe was online. It was good. It was very good for what it was, but of course it's different to meet in person. But yeah, let's see. It's going to be sometime next year. I don't know, maybe April-ish, something like this. But I'm just
I'm
guessing.
saying like Pico retreat.
Yeah, come and visit. You're
Pico
more than
Island
welcome.
retreat.
It's a great place. It's a great place. Lots of space, ocean and mountain, and the forest. Yeah, good
I'll
place.
have a new picture. I'll have a new picture for you next time.
Amazing. I love it.
So thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you so much. And I'll see you next time. Okay.
Okay. Be
Take
well.
care.
Stay safe. Take
You
care.
too. Lots of love. Bye.
Lots of love. Bye.